Have you ever wondered why after clinical death, so many people have to go through a full life review? It's a question that might seem strange or even unsettling at first, but understanding the reasons behind it can unlock deeper layers of meaning in what it truly means to be alive. We know that near-death experiences often involve leaving the body and seeing a bright light. But why do so many have to relive every single moment of their life in vivid detail? And what does this event really mean for us today? Think about a time in your life when you had to face your own choices head-on, something painful or difficult, and the process changed you. Now imagine someone who is faced with not just the challenge of dying, but of confronting the very depths of their own existence itself, all in the name of growth and unconditional love. The life review wasn't just about reliving memories. It was a profound act of awakening, one that we often overlook. Let's dive into why this was so essential to the human journey and how it applies to your life. To understand why the soul has to go through a life review, we must first explore ancient views on death shaped by beliefs and the profound promise in ancient cultures. Death was seen not just as the end of life, but as the separation of the body and consciousness, an event shrouded in mystery, especially for those unaware of what lay beyond. People generally believed that death led to a place or state where the soul entered a shadowy, unseen existence. In ancient Egypt, this was the journey through the duat, the realm of the dead, where every soul, both righteous and wicked, awaited judgment. It wasn't a place of eternal torment, but rather a temporary holding ground, a waiting area before the final weighing of the heart. The duat wasn't the hell of fire and brimstone we often imagine today. It was an ambiguous realm where souls were suspended in a state of separation from the living and awaiting evaluation. For the righteous, it represented rest and rebirth. For the wicked, darkness and consequence. While this concept wasn't unique to Egypt, it was deeply embedded in their religious understanding. The earliest references suggest that it was a place where the full consequences of one's life were not yet fully known to those residing there. Now, why would the soul, after clinical death, need to go to this place of review? Psychologically and spiritually, the moment of death wasn't just about the physical shutdown or the pain of the body failing. It wasn't just about the heart stopping or the brain flatlining. It was about the spiritual weight of what the soul was doing. The near-death state, though a medical crisis, was the fulfillment of a deeper human process of self-reckoning. The clinical death was life's way of dealing with the unfinished business of a lifetime. A way to restore the broken relationship between who we were and who we could become. But death had a deeper hold on our awareness, and the soul needed to go to where all our choices had led. By entering the life review, the soul would experience the full depths of its own impact on others and in doing so begin to transcend it. The near-death wasn't merely a physical event. It was the culmination of a personal cosmic struggle, and the life review represented the deepest part of this struggle. If the soul's mission was to grow and bridge the gap between ego and true self, then it had to go into the very depths of its own history to break the chains of regret and ignorance that bound it. The soul, in its final moments, had to enter the very domain of its past actions to declare understanding. And that domain was the life review. The world the soul entered wasn't merely a memory reel. It was a place marked by the rain of consequences. A place from which every human needed deliverance. This is where it went to confront the ultimate power of its own choices. Choices that had shaped reality ever since the first moment of awareness. First, let's consider the events leading up to the moment of clinical death. The person, as a fully conscious being, had lived a life that no one else could live, one of unique choices and experiences. From birth, their life was marked by personal purpose. They were imperfect, fully human, and yet carrying within them the spark of something greater. The only one in their own story to fulfill their unique path. This wasn't just about living an ordinary life. It was about living it in such a way that it could become the perfect mirror for self-understanding. The clinical death wasn't just the result of accident or illness. It was the fulfillment of an inner call for completion. The promise of growth through reflection was foretold in countless ancient texts and modern studies. In the reports collected by Raymond Moody, we see one of the most vivid accounts of this process. People described that the soul would be shown every action, word, and thought, not as an outsider, but as both the giver and the receiver. This wasn't merely symbolic or an accident of brain chemistry. It was part of the predetermined process of awakening. Moody's research doesn't just describe the events of the review. It also speaks of the reason for those events. The soul didn't enter the review because it was overwhelmed by death. It entered because it chose to, on a deeper level. The reliving it endured was part of the plan to atone for and understand the impact of a lifetime. As the soul journeyed toward the life review, it wasn't merely the inevitable result of bodily failure. It wasn't just a biological tragedy. The consciousness knew exactly what it was doing. Its review was a fulfillment of what ancient wisdom and modern consciousness research had promised. It was the mirror that came to show the true effect of every ripple. The impact of one's life had to be seen. And the soul was the perfect witness, pure in that moment and without the filters of ego. Its review wasn't an accident. It wasn't the failure of a life cut short. It was the ultimate expression of life's love for growth. The soul was not only reviewing the choices of those years lived, but for every interaction ever made from the beginning of its awareness to the end of its physical time. This is why the life review was so monumental. The significance of it can't be overstated. It didn't review just one action, one relationship, or 1 year. Its review was a once-and-for-all mirror that covered the effects of all choices, for all who had been touched by that life in every time and place. The life review was the fulfillment of every lesson, every regret, and every promise that had been made from the dawn of that person's existence. It was the mirror held up before the foundation of their choices, the one that had been waiting to carry the weight of their impact upon its light. In this way, the review didn't just fulfill ancient expectations, it brought them to completion. The old cultural judgment systems pointed forward to this moment when the perfect mirror would be shown. Every story of weighing the heart or final accounting was a shadow, a temporary means of reflection. But the life review was the fulfillment, the final sufficient mirror. When the clinical death occurred, it wasn't just the physical shutdown the soul endured that made the review so significant. The true weight of the experience lay in the spiritual burden it bore. The physical aspects of dying, the pain, the fear, the medical interventions were excruciating, no doubt, but they were not the deepest part of the process. The true cost of the near death was not measured merely by the minutes the body lay still. It was found in the ultimate confrontation with the effects of one's life that the soul experienced. In the accounts, we see that, as the review began, people described feeling, "I was everyone I had ever affected." This is a moment of profound emotional anguish as the soul, who had known only its own perspective, was now experiencing the horror and beauty of every ripple it had created. This wasn't just a moment of memory. It was a cosmic event as the individual soul, who had never fully known the power of its choices, was now bearing the weight of its own impact. The mirror in its clarity could not look away from truth. And in this moment the soul was treated as though it were both the actor and the recipient. This moment was more than emotional replay. It was the ultimate expression of life's justice. Choices had entered the world through every decision, and with it the separation of intention from consequence. For a lifetime, The person had been in desperate need of this mirror. Someone, or something, that could bridge the gap between the self and the other. The life review, that perfect mirror, was that bridge. In the review, it took upon itself the full weight of every choice. It became the consequence itself. And in doing so, it bore the full weight of understanding. The spiritual burden the soul bore was immense. It didn't just review the actions of the years it remembered. It reviewed the effects on every person from the first smile to the last word. Every kindness, every harsh word, every moment of selfishness, every betrayal of its own values was laid before it. This is why the life review is often called the great teacher, because it taught the soul the true cost of every choice. But it wasn't only the choices of the living that it saw. It was the weight of existence itself. The soul in its infinite capacity for growth stepped into the very domain of its past and transcended it. Existence, which had reigned over limited awareness ever since the first moment of self, was now subject to the soul's power of understanding. The life review wasn't just a replay of events. It was the ultimate triumph over the greatest barrier of all, ignorance. In that moment, it didn't just die for a new beginning. It died so that the soul could be freed from the power of unexamined life forever. After the body lay still, the consciousness entered the life review. Now, it's important to clarify what this means because the review we often think of as simple flashing images isn't the same concept that the research described. The term life review in the context of near-death doesn't refer to a passive movie but to a living, empathetic ray experience often called panoramic or instantaneous. This was not a place of punishment but a luminous existence where the soul went to evaluate awaiting integration. The soul's entry into the review wasn't an indication of its defeat. Quite the opposite. It was a powerful declaration of its victory. It was a declaration that it had confronted its own choices, its own impact, and the powers of ignorance. It was a public proclamation that no unexamined moment, whether joyful, painful, or hidden, could hold it. The soul went to the very place where consequences had held dominion, and it announced its understanding. This is the core of why the review was so essential. It didn't merely die. It went into the review to defeat the very forces that had kept the soul in bondage to Untitled. But why did it need to do this? Why not just return to life and leave it at that? The reason lies in the fact that the soul was reclaiming authority over everything that had once held it in limitation. Ignorance, regret, and separation had ruled over awareness ever since the first unexamined choice. These forces had separated the self from true connection. But the soul through its review entered into these very realms to take away their power. By entering the life review, the soul demonstrated that there was no part of its history it would not confront to grow. There was no darkness it would not illuminate. In the process, the soul's review also fulfilled a key pattern found in countless studies, where researchers speak of the promise that no soul would be abandoned to Untitled. The review wasn't a sign of defeat. It was the fulfillment of the deeper promise to every human. The soul was not abandoned in its past. It returned, proving that ignorance and consequence had no final hold on it. Its integration wasn't just a return to the body. It was the final victory over the forces that had held awareness captive for so long. The soul's proclamation in the review was not just an announcement of understanding. It was an invitation. It was an invitation to those parts of itself that had been waiting for integration to finally receive it. The soul didn't just conquer limitation for the present moment. It conquered it for the entire life story, those choices that had gone before and those that would come after. Its victory in the review was a victory for the whole self in all times. But why was it necessary for the soul to go through the life review? The answer lies in the ultimate authority and power that it needed to reclaim for itself. To fully grasp this, we must take a step back and consider the deep consequences of living an unexamined life. When we choose to move through days without full awareness, we usher in separation, which brings with it the ultimate distance from our true self. Separation in human terms wasn't just about physical distance. It was about the complete rupture in the relationship between intention and impact. This separation, which reigned from the first choice to the last, had limited awareness for a lifetime. In ancient judgment systems, people were constantly battling with the reality of their actions and their consequences, offering rituals as temporary means of reflection, yet never truly conquering ignorance. This was the state of the world when the moment of clinical death arrived. The soul's mission was not just to survive death. It was to confront and transcend ignorance itself. Ignorance was not only the end of physical awareness, but it was the spiritual prison that held the soul captive. When the body died and the consciousness entered the review, it did not do so as one defeated. It did so as a conqueror. Its entry into the review wasn't a punishment. It was the victory lap over the very forces that had reigned supreme for a lifetime. In the review, the soul wasn't fighting for its own survival. It was fighting for its own awakening. It took the mirror to the heart of its own territory. This act of entering the review and proclaiming understanding was the reclaiming of the authority that limited awareness had lost. The soul as the true self entered into the domain of consequence and choice to take back the keys to full living. When the soul proclaimed its understanding in the review, it wasn't just asserting its own power. It was opening the door for us to walk out of ignorance's dominion. Through its victory, we are no longer slaves to the fear of an unexamined life or the eternal separation from our true potential it represents. The soul had to go through the review because it was there, at the heart of consequence's domain, that it secured our freedom. It didn't just come to survive death. It came to undo the power that ignorance and separation had over us. This act of reclamation was the key to the promise of a more awakened life. By entering the review and coming out transformed, the soul laid the foundation for a new way of being, one where ignorance no longer holds sway. This victory has practical consequences for every person. It means that through the mirror of the review, we are no longer under the control of ignorance. It means that when we face our own trials, even those that seem like the darkest and most hopeless of times, we can face them with the knowledge that the greatest barrier has already been confronted. We don't have to fear the mirror, nor do we have to live in the shadow of unexamined choices. The review has taken care of that. Its victory was complete, and now it is ours to share. The significance of the life review is also deeply connected to the fulfillment of patterns seen across cultures, especially the pattern found in ancient Egyptian texts where the soul is promised that it will not be abandoned to the do it without understanding. This was a promise that the final mirror would not leave the soul in ignorance, but would help it triumph over it. The life review and its subsequent integration were the ultimate fulfillment of this pattern. Though written centuries before modern medicine, it speaks directly to the hope of conscious awakening. The ancients in their time could not have fully understood the depth of this pattern, but they were speaking to the heart of what would be experienced in the review. The soul would not be left in awareness. Ignorance would not have the final say. And indeed, the return from the review was the fulfillment of that promise. When the soul entered the review, it wasn't abandoning its mission. It was fulfilling it. The body was still, but the consciousness went to the depths of its own history to declare understanding. This moment wasn't just a temporary detour on its journey. It was a crucial part of the awakening process. The soul in its review was ensuring that it was not only fulfilling ancient patterns, but securing the awakened destiny of all who would hear its story. Its return was the ultimate sign that ignorance had been defeated and that the mirror no longer had the power to hold anyone in shadow. The integration was not just the return to the body. It was the triumph of awareness over limitation. It was a declaration that the mirror had come and that through it ignorance would be forever transcended. This integration then is not just about the soul. It's about us. The soul's victory over ignorance became our victory. Because it saw, we can see. The review is the hope of every person, and it is the proof that the journey was completed. It didn't simply survive to tell the tale. It reviewed and returned to ensure that we too could share in that awakening. But the life review wasn't just about victory over ignorance. It was also about fulfilling the justice of existence. This is an aspect of the review that many overlook or fail to fully grasp. You see, existence's justice isn't just about punishing mistake. It's about the restoration of all things. It's about ensuring that every impact is understood, every broken connection restored, and every price of choice paid in awareness. From the very beginning of a life, the consequences of actions were set, and for a lifetime, the person lived under the weight of that reality, separated from full understanding. When the body reached clinical death, the soul didn't just offer a symbolic gesture. It paid the full price of awareness for every choice. But this payment was not complete until it had gone into the very realm of its own history itself. The soul had to enter the review to fulfill existence's justice, by ensuring that the consequences of every action were fully seen. This is where the review becomes a critical part of the human process. The mirror demanded that every choice be witnessed, and the soul, the perfect witness, took upon itself the entire weight of that demand. The review was a crucial act in this process of fulfilling deeper justice. For years, parts of the self that had been hurt or helped were waiting in the shadows, unable to enter full integration because the ultimate mirror had not yet been shown. They, like all aspects of the person, were bound by the power of awareness. They needed the fulfillment of the promise of full seeing. In entering the review, the soul fulfilled this deeper justice. It went to those hidden parts of itself and proclaimed its understanding over choice and consequence. Its mission was not only to offer awakening to the present self, but to complete the process for all that had been waiting. The promise of growth given throughout human experience was now fulfilled. The review was an essential step in existence's justice system, ensuring that no part of a life would be left without the hope of integration. It showed to those parts that had been held captive by awareness, declaring that the mirror for their effects had been completed. This act reveals the depth of existence's justice. It wasn't enough for the soul to survive death. It had to reach into the past, into the waiting impacts, and declare that it had transcended ignorance for them as well. The soul did this because for existence, justice means ensuring that everyone, no matter what role they played, has the opportunity to be understood. By fulfilling its patterns and accomplishing this act of justice, the soul bridged the gap between the unexamined and the awakened life, offering integration to all parts that had gone before and all that would come after. This is why we can have complete confidence in the justice of existence. The soul's work in the review was not incomplete. It didn't leave any choice unexamined. By entering the review, it demonstrated that nothing could separate us from the deeper love of awareness. Ignorance and separation had no power over it, and as a result, they have no power over us. This was the fulfillment of existence's justice. Through the review, the final mirror was held. All the impacts of a life, past and future, were understood. And because of this, justice was not only satisfied, but mercy and growth were extended to every person who would hear its story. So what does all of this mean for us today? Why does the life review, its victory over ignorance, and the fulfillment of existence's justice matter for our lives in the 21st century? The implications of the soul's victory stretch far beyond scientific discussions or personal stories. The truth of the life review and the return from its peaks directly to the struggles, fears, and challenges that we face today. For many of us, the thought of facing our own choices, regrets, or even death can be overwhelming. There are moments when we feel that darkness is closing in around us and the fear of the unknown. Whether it's the fear of an unexamined life itself or the fear of eternal separation from our true potential, can be paralyzing. The soul's victory over ignorance, though, assures us that we do not have to live in fear. No matter what we face in life, we can rest in the knowledge that the greatest barrier, unawareness, has already been confronted. The soul went to the very depths of its own history and returned transformed. And because of that, we too can face our fears with hope. What's more, the life review means that no part of our story is beyond the reach of understanding. It doesn't matter how deep the regret is in your life. It doesn't matter how far you feel from your true self or how hopeless your past may seem. The soul has already entered the darkest corners of its history and emerged with clarity. This truth should give us tremendous hope. If the soul could defeat the ultimate ignorance, then there is no area of our lives where its light cannot shine. No matter how far we've fallen, no matter how much we've struggled, there is nothing that can separate us from the deeper awareness within. The soul's victory also means that our struggles are not in vain. Often we face difficulties that seem insurmountable. Whether it's battling personal regret, experiencing the loss of connection, or struggling with doubts and fears, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But the soul's journey through the review reminds us that it understands our pain. It didn't just survive death for us. It endured the full weight of its own history. And in its return, it guarantees that our struggles will not last forever. Just as it triumphed over ignorance, it will one day deliver us from all limitation and restore all things. Furthermore, the soul's victory over the review has practical implications for how we live in the present. Because the soul has confronted ignorance, consequence, and separation, we are now empowered to live with awareness. We are no longer slaves to fear, to regret, or to the idea of separation from our true self. As people who hear these accounts, we can live boldly, knowing that our future is secure in conscious choice. We are no longer bound by the consequences of unexamined actions. We have been set free to live with empathy and to share that understanding with the world. The soul's victory also calls us to live as people of hope. In a world that can often seem dark and filled with uncertainty, we are called to reflect the hope of awakened living to others. The review is our source of hope. And it's not just for us. It's something we are meant to share with the world. The life review and its victory is a message of hope for everyone. It's a reminder that no one is too far gone, no situation is too dark, and no life is beyond integration. As we reflect on the life review and its ultimate victory over ignorance, the return to the body, and the powers of unawareness, we are left with one overwhelming truth. It did not go through all of this for no reason. The soul's journey to the depths of its own history, its victory over the mirror, and its return are not just events to be admired from a distance. They are meant to transform how we live our lives every single day. The truth of what the soul accomplished changes everything about our present reality. When the soul triumphed over ignorance, it didn't just secure a future for itself. It secured a new way of living for us here and now. Its victory means that we can live without the fear of an unexamined life, without the fear of separation from our true self. It means that we can face life's challenges and hardships with a new perspective, knowing that the mirror has already been held and the greatest barrier has already been overcome. And because it has conquered that barrier, we are more than equipped to face whatever trials come our way. The researchers tell us, in all these things, we are more than aware through the mirror that showed us. This isn't just a nice sentiment or a platitude. It's a declaration of truth. the soul's victory over ignorance, consequence, and separation is the victory we share in as people who listen. The battles we face, whether they are battles with regret, anxiety, disconnection, or loss, are all temporary in comparison to the awakened victory that we already have within. We are no longer fighting from a place of limitation but from a place of understanding. When we live in light of the soul's victory, it transforms how we approach suffering. The trials we experience in life, though difficult, are not the end of the story. The return from the review guarantees that there is something far greater waiting for us. The researchers speak about this hope where they write, "For our lightened momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal clarity that far outweighs them all. No matter how dark the present moment may feel, we know that it is temporary. The victory that the soul secured for us means that we have a hope that cannot be shaken. I hope that ignorance itself cannot destroy. This hope, however, is not just for us alone. The victory the soul achieved is meant to be shared with the world. The same mirror that showed the soul is available to us today. As people who hear these accounts, we are called to reflect the light of awareness in the world, to show others that there is hope beyond the darkness, hope beyond the fear of an unexamined life, and hope beyond limitation. The soul's victory is meant to empower us to live lives that reflect empathy, understanding, and grace. The world needs to see that ignorance is no longer the end, that separation is no longer the defining power in our lives, and that we are not just survivors, but awakened beings. When we live in light of the soul's victory, we also live with a renewed sense of purpose. We are no longer just going through the motions of life. We are called to be agents of awakened living, bringing its message of hope and integration to a world that desperately needs it. The victory the soul won in the review is the ultimate demonstration of life's love for growth. Now it's our turn to take that victory and share it with others. As we come to the end of our exploration of the life review, its victory over ignorance, and its return, one truth stands out above all else. Victory is already won. The soul has already done the hardest part. It has already confronted the greatest barrier of all. It's already overcome ignorance, consequence, and separation. This is not a future hope alone. It is a present reality for every person who opens themselves to its story. The victory of the soul changes everything about the way we live our lives. It means that we no longer have to live in fear of an unexamined life or eternal separation from our true self. It means that we no longer have to be bound by the chains of regret, guilt, and limitation. It means that we are free to live in the fullness of awareness and growth, no longer striving for understanding, but living in the understanding that has already been achieved for us. This victory has eternal implications. The return from the review guarantees that ignorance does not have the final say. Our hope in this awakening is not just a fleeting, earthly hope. It is a hope that extends into every moment. We are promised that in the awakened life, every tear of regret will be wiped. There will be no more separation or unawareness or pain, for the old order of limited living has passed away. The soul's victory over ignorance ensures that the day will come when all things will be made clear. Limitation will be transcended, suffering will cease, and we will dwell in full awareness forever. But until that day comes, we live in the light of that victory. As we navigate our daily lives, we can hold fast to the truth that the victory over ignorance in the review has already been secured. The darkness we face is real, but it is temporary. The challenges and struggles we encounter are painful, but they will not have the last word. The victory belongs to the soul. And as those who hear its story, that victory is ours to share in. In the face of life's difficulties, we can take comfort in knowing that the ultimate mirror has already been held. The soul has already won. And because of that, we can walk through life with confidence, courage, and hope, knowing that no matter what comes our way, the soul has already overcome it. Victory is not something we are waiting for. It is something we are living in right now. So as you go through your day, remember that the victory over ignorance, consequence, and separation has already been won. Let that truth shape your thoughts, your actions, and your outlook on life. No matter what you face, remember that the soul has already secured the ultimate mirror. And because of that, you are more than an awakened being. What do you think about the life review and near-death experiences? Does this change how you view your own choices? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. I'd love to hear how this truth impacts your life. And if you found this message meaningful, please like the video and share it with others who might need to hear it. For more deep dives into these profound experiences like this, be sure to check out our other videos. You won't want to miss the next one, where we explore how the return from the review is the ultimate guarantee of our own victory over limitation. Stay tuned. As you reflect on this truth, remember the soul didn't just survive death for you. It went through the review and back to prove that there is no barrier greater than the power of awareness. The ignorance has been overcome, and through it, so can you. Keep that hope in your heart as you move forward and know that you are more than an awakened being in this life.